Well, welcome into the 5 of 6 Golf Podcast. I'm Tony Altieri. That is Riku Mukherjee. And we have special guest for the third major of the year, the U.S. Open, Mr. Chris Caldwell, our own NASA data scientist, here to break down all the stats, all of the salient metrics to help us make the best decision. Chris, what's up, man? It's good to have you on the pod.
Hey, not much, man. Thanks for letting me join. I think this is my second ever golf podcast, but it's fun to come shoot the shit with you guys and bust your balls a little bit and make fun of your plays. Let's go find a winner.
Yeah, for sure. As always, make sure that you subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. Chris and Rick do, obviously during the football season, a weekly podcast about fantasy football. Mike, Jake, and the boys do their regular Buffalo Bill content. And they're actually spinning up a new AFC East channel where they'll be talking everything AFC East. But Rick and I are here every single week talking golf. And this week, Rick, we've got our third major of the year, the U.S. Open, live from our home turf. Well, your adopted home turf in Southern California, LACC. And all accounts are this is going to be something different than we've seen in a long time. But what's your initial takes on the U.S. Open, man?
Oh, I got some fiery takes, bro. We'll get into it a little bit, but it's going to be fun this week. We might see some Playboy models on the 13th hole in the backyard, but it's going to be fun. This course is for the rich people in LA. This was built. I don't know, when was this course built? A while ago, right? A long time ago, right?
Yeah, this course is well over 50, 60 years old. It's gone through a couple redesigns. The designer of this course was the same guy who designed Bel Air Country Club and I believe the course where the Genesis is played as well, too. So there's going to be some similarities, but all reports are that this is drastically different than anything we've ever seen from a U.S. Open venue.
Yeah, what does that mean, though? Is it going to be super hard? Is it going to be easy? Like, I don't really know what that means. It looks like the rough's up, but it looks like there's wide fairways. So I don't know. We'll get into all that in a little bit, but I'm looking forward to this week. It's going to be. I love having West Coast golf back. I hate having to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and check my DraftKings lineups, make sure no one's withdrawn when the tournaments in the East Coast is a normal time golf course for me, a normal time golf event for me. So I'm pumped up for this week, man. Third major of the year. I love the U.S. Open. It's always on Father's Day weekend, so it's pretty special.
Yeah, this one is unique in that we haven't seen LACC host a major event, right? Like, so there's no course history to go off of. There's some guys that played an event for the Walker Cup, which for those of people who don't know who the Walker Cup is or what the Walker Cup is, it's an amateur event played with the best amateurs, collegiate players around the country, playing against basically the best players from Europe in a similar age bracket. So a number of these guys, Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, I think there's 5 or 6 guys that played in the Walker Cup that are playing here again. But of course, the course has gone through a massive redesign since then. And of course, the USGA, when they wrap their arms around any course for the US Open, it tends to play much more different than usual, fast and firm, long, super thick rough, all of the things that we know are kind of earmarks of the US Open. But this one, it seems we're getting kind of mixed accounts, right? Where typically the US Open is like, you got to be long off the tee because the course is tremendously difficult to reverse if you don't have length. We're not necessarily hearing that. Like, we're hearing that the course is firm and fast and that accuracy is at a premium and that, you don't necessarily have to be a bomber to attack this place. If you can put the ball in the fairway, be good with long irons, that you could potentially score here. And then we're hearing mixed things from the grounds. Rick Gaiman, your buddy, is on the grounds at LACC, and he's been reporting like, that this could be either super difficult. When I say super difficult, that, the winning score could be 5, 6, 7 under, or it could be 12, 13, 14 under, which is not typical for a US Open. And so I think with all of the mystery wrapped around the course, it makes honing in on the metrics and the guys that we kind of want to target for course fits even more important. But I mean, what's your take initially, Chris? I'll go to you first off of the reports maybe that have been kind of leaked out there, and then we'll ask Rick as well too. Like, what's your gut check? Do you think this plays like your typical like US Open where it's like 6, 7 under and the majority of the field is over par? Or do you think we're going to get a softer, kinder, liberal California US Open?
Yeah, you stole my first question I was going to ask is tell me your winning score. But in just the people that I'm seeing on the grounds there, I'm so intrigued about the rough next to the fairway because the fairways are super wide, right? And then just from the pictures that people are taking, it doesn't look super penal in terms of like large clusters of trees. There's zero water on this course, right? There's no water hazard. We're seeing that the rough around the greens is very penal. Like you can just walk over top your golf ball and not find it.
Yep.
But it seems like in the fairways, it's not really like that. So, I'm sure they're done cutting the rough as of like a day or two ago. I'm wondering how it's going to grow up around the fairways. But I think that's going to be the real key here is, if there's no like initial cut of rough, it's just fairway that are super wide, and then there's the rough. So I'm really interested to see what a missed fairway costs you in terms of shots here. I think that's going to be a real big kicker, and we'll see how we really take driving accuracy into this week. So that's my main takeaway. We know the rough around the greens is going to be treacherous, but how is the rough around the fairways? That's what I want to check out.
Yeah, and I mean, Rick, that's I think kind of the central question that everybody's asking is we don't have intermediate cut. The reports from the ground is it's fairway straight into 2, 3, 4 inch rough. But to Chris's point, the other, I guess, conflicting reports are that you can miss fairways and still have shots in, right? Like it's not your typical Parkland course or where there's tons and tons of trees. It sounds like the fairways are wide. You have angles even if you miss the fairways, but the rough, how penal is the rough going to be? Like what's your take? I mean, you take the baseline of the US Open like we've seen over the course of the last 10 years, you just say, hey, this is probably not going to play as tough as it typically does. I mean, where do you land on that?
I think the latter. I think it's actually going to play pretty easy. I know it sounds weird for a U.S. Open, but I could see the winning score being in the double digits this week, 12, 13, 14. I think we could see something similar to Aaron Hill's a few years ago, which Brooks won at like 17 or 18 under or something like that. I don't remember. But um, the thing is about this course is they're not going to miss the fairways. I mean, these good players are not going to miss the fairways. They're 40 to 50 yard wide fairways. I mean, even Chris could hit these fairways, and he has a massive slice off the tee. I mean, put me on this course, I'm going to hit every single fairway every round. So I mean, these guys are going to pound it down there. They're going to have. I mean, I think the thing that people don't really understand is that how good these guys are out of the fairway when they have a clean lie in the fairway. They just know how to attack pins and they know how to get it on the green, and they're not going to miss many greens either. I don't think so. That I might be completely wrong. I really don't know. I'm also hearing that the fairways have a lot of bumps and leans a certain way that even if you hit the middle of the fairway, it might roll into the rough. That could be a thing. But just initial thoughts is that these fairways are going to be so easy to hit, and people are just going to be able to attack these pins, left and right from the fairway. I think the only way that they could potentially make it super difficult is if they put these pins in like ridiculous positions where it's just going to be impossible for them to attack these pins. It's going to be impossible for them to get it within 10, 15 feet. So if they do that, if the USGA sets it up that way, then yeah, I could see the scores being in the single digits. But I think we'll have a good idea after day one. I mean, I think after day one, when the scores are going to be in, I think the leaders are going to be potentially 5, 6 under after day one. I think I could see somebody going out there and shooting a 64, 65 this on Thursday. So if that happens, I think it's going to be easily into the double digits unless they change these pin positions around, or I don't know if they want to do that. But I really think it's going to be a pretty easy U.S. Open comparably to things like Torrey Pines and Shinnecock and stuff like that. So we'll see how it plays out, but I definitely like the accuracy guys this week for sure.
So kind of leaning on those narratives, right? I'll use the term very broadly, but nuanced, right? So we've got fairways with a lot of uneven lies. We've got some really strange holes from a yardage perspective. in relation to what we normally see in US Opens and even regular tour stops. We've got a par 3 that's been talked about multiple times that can play 130 yards or can play 60 yards. We've got par 3s that are over 240, 250. We've got one that measures out of 290 yards. So there's a lot of just different nuanced holes here. When we're talking about a player fit, do we think this is the kind of course where bombers are just going to be able to smash the ball down there as far as they possibly can and hit wedges into greens? Or do we think this is the kind of course where it's really going to take somebody who has a good all-around game, maybe lean on long irons, and you're not going to need an elite driver of the golf ball in order to win this US Open?
So Fantasy National has a good stat. It's good drives gained, and that is a combination of distance and accuracy. And I really like that stat this week. I think that's going to be like the heaviest weighted stat in my model this week. So I think it's going to be a combination of both. So if I say that, I think the overall all-around good game, someone like Xander is the perfect example, who doesn't have a weakness in their game per se is a good candidate to win this week. I think someone that's going to hit fairways and greens and make some putts this week is going to be the guy that wins.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Xander, and I mean, just to look at it, over his last 5 rounds, he's gaining basically 10 strokes versus the field, 6.7 tee to green, gaining in every single category, even going back to his last 150 rounds. He's basically gaining versus the field in all of the measurable statistics: off the tee, approach, around the green, putting. It sounds like that well-rounded player is really going to be that guy. But Xander, even though he's played really, really well, I mean, even going back, I don't think we've seen him miss a cut for, God, I think going back to the Masters in 2022 is the last time he missed a cut on tour. But we've also seen that he hasn't had that level of success where he's contending for majors. Him and Cantlay are two guys that come to mind. Chris, I toss this out to you. Do you think that this is a spot where we see maybe a first-time major winner, a Xander, a Cantlay, one of those guys, Hovland, who breaks through in this kind of a venue?
I think it's more open in this kind of venue because I'm not going to say no one's ever played here before, but it's the first time the PGA Tour has been here before. Yep. It's more likely to have a first-time winner here than it is at Augusta, right, or Carnoustie or something like that. That's just my opinion. But yeah, you said 2 players. Do I think they're going to win? You said Xander and you said Cantlay. One of those people I'm completely all in on, and one I'm completely all out. But we'll wait till we get into the DraftKings pricing and stuff. But to answer your question, I think there could be a first-time winner this week.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the guys that have won here the last few years, and I shouldn't say here, but in majors the last couple of years, Bryson got his first one, Collin Morikawa got his first one, and obviously Morikawa's won a second one since then. But we've seen that some of these new guys have really stepped up. We've also had flyers, Phil winning, a PGA Championship out of nowhere at Kiowa Island. So, I think, to your point, I think we're starting to see maybe a changing of the guard from these guys that have traditionally contended and won majors to these new guys where all of a sudden this separate class of guys are starting to contend and win majors. With all of that being said, we've also in the recent history seen guys like DJ and Hideki win mid-major championships. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. Just like you guys, we're all doing the best to assess what's going to happen based off of all the data that we're seeing out there, right? Like, we're taking all the stroke gains metric, we're looking at all of the flyovers, we're getting all the feedback from people on the course, trying to understand. But the reality is we don't really know how this is going to play out. This could be day one, could be the leaders at 0, -1, +1, or to Rick's point, they could be 5, 6 under. We really don't know how this is going to play out. And so I think it brings in a lot of interest from the casual golf fan who doesn't necessarily follow, where it's not your typical guys where it's like, hey, if you don't hit the ball 350 yards, you're not going to have a chance. It sounds like and feels like your Joaquin Niemans and your guys like that are ball strikers, elite second shot hitters, guys who are great on approach are going to have great opportunity to win. And so I think that's a great way to segue into this week. With that being said, I do want to give a little nod to last week, which I don't know if you guys both watched it. I know Rick watched it, but the Canadian Open had one of the better finishes we've seen in a long time. We've had playoffs, but I mean, we have Nick Taylor, first Canadian to win his national event in like 50 years, and he hits a 70-foot bomb on the fourth playoff hole to do that. Unbelievable. Rick, you and I both won some money on that deal, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
But I felt like the Canadian Open being sandwiched between an elevated event and a major championship, it stood up well on its own.
I agree. I really enjoyed watching it this weekend. I thought it was I mean, maybe because I had some skin in the game with Tommy Fleetwood as my one and done pick everywhere, and Terrell Hatton, and DraftKings lineups with both of those guys in it. I really like Nick Taylor. He was in my DraftKings lineup. We talked about it at some point, and I was like, I really like Nick Taylor this week, and I was like, I have no idea why I didn't bet him pre-tournament, but as soon as he started to get it going on Saturday, I think. When he made the turn, or maybe on the 11th or 12th hole, something like that, I got him at 16-1, which is not compared to anything like you. You got him at 75-1 pre-tournament, but that was profit for the week. But it was nice to hit that. But I was really rooting for Tommy Fleetwood to sink all those Canadians' hopes and dreams last week, because I'm a big Tommy fan, and as we'll get into in a little bit, I really like him this week also, and I was really hoping that he would have pulled off the victory last week.
Dude, he played so scared. Just my opinion. In the extra holes, he didn't play to win. He was waiting for it to be handed to him. I just didn't understand, on the par 5, continuously taking 3-iron or whatever he was hitting. You got to take out the hybrid or the 5-wood or 3-wood there and just say, I'm going for it. I understand you can't driver on that hole, but I don't know, playing scared. You could see it in his face, man. The way he was walking, he didn't have the swag at all. We were texting during that. It was like blatantly obvious.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I kept saying it. Why does he keep hitting iron off the 18th tee? I just didn't want him to do that. I wanted him to club up a little bit
and the fairway with it. Like, if you're going to take iron, like, you have to hit the fairway with it. And he missed the fairway at least once with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen in these playoff events, right? Because we've seen a number of them. It's like both guys in the playoff tend to be like hesitant, like they don't want to make a mistake. They're like, look, I'm just going to put it in the fairway, try and hit a green in regulation, and let the other guy make a mistake. And inevitably, what ends up happening, and which I think what we saw last week play out with Nick Taylor, is, dude, you got to go take it. Like, you have to go win the tournament, and playing it safe is just not the way to do it. And again, I had, just like you, Rick, I had a Tommy ticket. I think everybody had Tommy tickets. It was funny because even though the event was the Canadian Open, played in Ontario, in the heart of Toronto, like, it felt like there were a number of people on the ground actively rooting for Tommy Fleetwood. It had this really weird feel where they kept panning to a number of the European guys that were like rooting for Tommy, like for him to get that win. Yeah. And obviously he didn't get it done. Nick Taylor wins it. All of Canada celebrates. Adam Hadwin gets tackled by a security guard, which was all over Twitter. I even saw a parody account post that he was going to have to withdraw from the U.S. Open because he had a separated shoulder from taking that hit on the 18th green. But I thought it was a great event, and it's something that Pat Mayo and Jeff Feinberg have talked about a lot. But we have a number of these like national opens that are being played in this stretch, from the Canadian Open all the way to, I believe, the Scottish to the Irish right before the British Open. And it's like, it would be really cool with all of this collaboration now that we have between the DP World Tour and LIV and the PGA to try and string together some kind of special thing around all of these national opens.
Yeah. I was going to say that, Tony, if like June was like National Open month, like do US Open, Canadian Open, Irish Open, whatever, Scottish, whatever you do one in Asia too. That would just be really cool. It'd be a lot of travel, but I think that's with everything merging, it's like, it would almost, not like a mini Ryder Cup, but like it's just a cool thing to kind of kick off the summer, have everyone celebrate their heritage. I don't know. I think they should do something like that.
I agree. If they did something like that and had like a overall leaderboard or something like that with like whoever shoots the best out of all those national opens, and that person wins some money or something, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think golf, because of the fact that the tours have been disjointed to say the best. It just seems like it's a forgotten thing. But there's a number of national opens that are happening. There's a bunch of guys that end up making these trips across the pond to do these things, and so it'd be great to link them together. Now that we're all, I guess, holding hands, singing songs, and taking Saudi money, it'd be great if we, could somehow make this happen. But that's not the task at hand. What we do have on hand is the U.S. Open this week from LACC. So let's jump into it, man. Let's jump right into the DraftKings pricing. And let's start talking about ownership and lineup construction, because I will tell you this. I started making lineups last week when the pricing was posted on Saturday. And regardless of how I started, whether it was like, a 10, 11K guy and then a 9K guy, or grabbing a couple 8K guys, there are some regions where you just kind of end up pricing wise. And there's 4 or 5 guys that seem to be gaining a lot of steam from an ownership perspective because of the way lineups are going to be constructed. And so we'll get into that as we jump down the board. But here we are above $9,000. Let's separate this into 2 very, very distinct tiers. The guys above 10K, the guys below 10K, the guys above Hovland, Cantlay, Koepka, Rahm, and Scheffler. Hard to argue with what Scheffler's been doing. He's basically been finishing T3, T4, T5 every single week while losing 4 to 5 strokes putting. His tee to green game is immaculate. Jon Rahm, we saw him basically do the same thing at the Memorial. Koepka, who is now coming in having finished second and first place in back-to-back majors, gaining a lot of steam. Cantlay in LA, his backyard, everything is trending for him. And of course, Victor, who's fresh off of the biggest win in his career at the Memorial. We are stacked above 10K. Rick, I'm going to toss it to you. Where do you go above $10,000?
Any one of these guys? They're all pretty good, right?
Yeah,
like you said, can't deny what Scheffler's doing at the top. If he just finds some modicum of a putter, he's going to win every event. Pretty much, he's gaining strokes tee to green on the field at a peak Tiger Woods like clip, and it's pretty scary. The rest of the field should be scared. If he fixes his putter and he figures out what's wrong with his putter, he's going to win this event. He's going to win like 5 in a row. So you got to love Scheffler at 11-4. The ownership is showing it. He's showing as the highest owned guy in this range. I'll go back to Brooks. Like I said, I think this is going to be similar to Aaron Hills. Brooks is a U.S. Open, master. He knows how to play USGA courses. He's obviously coming off of a win at the PGA Championship. I can't go against him, man. He's just a killer, and I think in an event like this where you have the best players in the world, he has some sort of like, I don't know whether it's his ego or whether it's his he feels like he still has he's a 5-time major winner and still has like some sort of chip on his shoulder, but he gets up for these major events. And when he does, when he gets in contention, I mean, other than maybe the Masters this year where, Rahm just maybe outplayed him on Sunday a little bit, he usually closes the door. So I really like Brooks up here also. I can't disagree with you with Hovland. He's obviously playing the best golf of his career. Finally did the job at the Memorial, winning a tournament on mainland USA. So I gotta like him, but I'm not really a Hovland guy, so I don't really go there. Cantlay, I get the love for him. This is a LA course. He's a UCLA guy. He's a best bent crest putter on tour. I get all that, but I don't know, man. He's got to show it to me in a major before I decide to go all in on him, which is what I think Chris is about to say. So it's tough to go all in on a guy that literally all he does is finish 10, somewhere between 10th to 20th at every single major. So until he actually in contention and winning one, I don't know. And then Jon Rahm, it seems like it's a perfect course setup for him. California, he plays amazing. You have a California course. The only thing that's a little scary for Jon Rahm here is that even though it's a California course, it's not POA. POA is his best putting surface by far. So I don't mind Rahm this week. It's always tough to go against Rahm, but if you made me pick between Scheffler and Rahm, I'm going to go Scheffler. So I would say my favorite 2 plays up here are Scheffler and Koepka, and then after that, probably a bubble would be Victor Hovland for me.
Chris, Rick kind of threw it out to you there. Cantlay, you know what I mean? The guy hasn't really contended in a major since the Masters like 3 or 4 years ago, where he went out early, made a run, would look like he was going to post a number, and I think he died on Amen Corner. But again, like when you look at him statistically, the strokes gain metrics, the bent putting, all of that, he's off of the charts. We just haven't seen it come together. Do you think this is the week like he finally does it in his backyard in LA?
Absolutely not. He's a softie.
Oh, yeah, I'm surprised by that.
Yep. No, I will own 0% Patrick Cantlay this week in DraftKings. I wouldn't dare bet that number either. Guy's just not going to win. I mean, there's so many players that I'd rather bet at the same outright number as Cantlay. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but Rory, Xander, Vic, I would all bet at Cantlay's number. So no, completely off of him. Like you said, it's a mental thing for him, or he just doesn't, he's the anti-Brooks, right? Like he cannot get up for a big tournament. So why am I going to bet him? I'm just not. And, you know, we think the course fits him well, but like we were just talking about for 20 minutes earlier, we don't know what the course is. So let's not go out of our way to try to massage, you know, Patrick Cantlay onto the podium this week. It's not happening. So for me at the top this week, I think Rahm is going to be my most owned player because of ownership reasons. My gut tells me he's going to be the lowest owned between Scheffler, Koepka, and Cantlay. So I'm going to go there for like a high-end pivot for Rahm. But I will also have Scotty lineups and Vic lineups. I'm going to hold my breath and fade Brooks in DraftKings because I'm only doing 6 lineups this week. But Cantlay never crossed my mind. He's completely off my board.
You know what's funny? You mentioned Rahm is kind of the low-owned option. According to Fantasy National right now, Koepka and Cantlay are the 2 lowest-owned guys above 10K. Victor and Rahm both coming in about 15-16% ownership, and then Scotty Scheffler trending towards 20. Again, they're projections, so you don't really know, but it is odd to see that Koepka, despite like the fact that the guy's just crushed it at the majors, like he's coming in potentially the lowest owned guy above $10,000.
That's not going to happen. There's also the narrative that people only get to play him 4 times a year, right? So it's like when you see the name, it's like something new and exciting. So I don't believe that that'll trend out that way. Just my gut.
Rick, let me ask you this: do you think people go guy from the 10Ks, guy from the 9Ks? Do you think that's the most popular build? Or do you think people just skip down outside of the 10Ks and grab 3 guys in the 9Ks like Xander, you know, Cam Smith and Jordan Spieth? I know Spieth's gaining a ton of steam, and it feels like as he's getting more and more popular, Cam Smith is getting more and more popular. But like, where do you think builds are going to go? Because I think that's going to have a lot to do with who ends up garnering ownership above the 9K level in general. Are people going to say, give me Scheffler, give me Cam Smith, or are people going to say, no, I'll take 3 guys in the 9Ks and take my chances?
I would say the latter. I think usually the trend in majors is to build more balance, just because you get pretty soft pricing. You get really good golfers in the 7K range. So usually people like to end their lineups in the, you know, from this week, it's looking like a lot of people are ending their lineups at like Justin Rose at 7,600 because he's getting a lot of ownership. So I really think that like people like to you know, start in the 9K range, especially when you got a name like Rory at 9,900. Like that's a click right there for people. So if you want to get different, which I think I am going to get different this week, I'll tell you guys this right now. I'm going to have a lot of Scotty Brooks lineups this week.
Ooh, so let's play devil's advocate with that. If you go Scotty and Brooks to start your lineups, what's that leave you with average wise for your
around right around 6,900, 7,000? And there's a couple guys in the 6,000 range I like. So put a couple of those guys in, put a couple 7K guys in, and you got a good lineup.
It's pretty interesting because you talk about that. That's going to be very different because I think a lot of people are doing, you know, one of the guys from the above 10K and then in the 9Ks. And then that brings you to your guys like that $7,500 range. And then the guys down at $7,000. It keeps you out of the 6K range. And I think merely playing guys in under $7,000 is going to make lineups different this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if we just get into the 9Ks, there's only a couple of names here that I like, to be completely honest with you, Tony. And I know a lot of people are gonna, love to click on Rory. His U.S. Open track run is amazing. 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th, nothing but top 10s the last 4 years for Rory. And at 9,900, you're getting a discount. I mean, it just boggles my mind that Rory McIlroy is cheaper than Patrick Cantlay and Victor Hovland. That just doesn't make sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
People are like, oh my God, he's in a slump, blah, blah, blah. You know what? His last 3 events are 9th, 7th, 7th. Give me a break. He's not in a slump. He's in form right now. He's fine. 9,900 is a great price for him. He's tied for first in your model overall. That's amazing. I like that. I like that play. I like Rory at 9,900. I think that's a good play. I think I'm going to go ahead and just fade Xander. I mean, he's going to get ownership. It's a tough fade. It really is. And, Chris is going to be all in on him, but like, it's a tough fade because he is overall a great golfer. He gains in every category, but I think I'd rather pay up and take Rory at 9,900, or I'd rather go down and take the guys at the bottom of the range. I like Matt Fitzpatrick at 9,100, defending US Open champion. He plays tough courses really well, which if this is going to be a tough course, then he's going to fit in really well. But Cam Smith, I also like at 9,000. I think he's coming rounding into form just in time for this event. He's been playing well on the LIV Tour ever since the Masters, basically. So I don't mind Cam Smith at 9,000 either. So I think for me, it's the guy at the top at the 9K range and the guys at the bottom of the 9K range, and I'm just going to fade everyone in between.
Yeah, it's interesting because objectively, when I kind of looked at the pricing when it first came out, I'm like, holy shit, Rory's $9,900. Like, in a vacuum, by the metrics, long term, short term, Rory is by far the best player in the 9K range.
Yeah.
And so my initial take when I started building lineups was to grab him. You mentioned it, 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Those are his last 4 finishes in the US Open. And then leading form coming in here, he's got 3 top 10 finishes. It's like, how is this guy not above $10,000? But there are so many options and so many different narratives in a course that's kind of wrapped in mystery with a bunch of nuances and not knowing. Like, it feels like the guys early, the Southern California guys who are gaining steam early in the year, Max Homa off of the Genesis win, Collin Morikawa, an LA guy playing in LA, Xander Schauffele, Southern California guy. Like, 3 of the guys at the top of the 9K are SoCal guys who have played this course more than 24 times each. Chris, like, do you think these guys, Xander, Homa, Morikawa, do you think there's a distinct advantage for these guys who have experience here, who know the subtleties of this course, versus the guys who are walking into it fresh this year? And yes, they're going to have 2, 3, 4, practice rounds. I'm sure these guys have played rounds previously, knowing that the US Open was going to be here this year. But that, I guess, depth of experience that specifically Homa and Morikawa have here, Cantlay as well. Cantlay had the course record before Max Homa broke it. Morikawa said he's played this course, 24 times or more. And then, of course, Xander being a SoCal guy with tremendous US Open history. Like, do you think that's a smarter play, grabbing those guys in the 9Ks, skipping the 10Ks, or do you think, no, you can't go in on those guys?
Yeah, I'll answer 2 different questions. I think my favorite build this week is holding your breath and skipping the 10Ks and grabbing 3 from the 9Ks. You actually said my favorite 3 earlier, Xander, Spieth, and Cam Smith. Love that start right there. I have 2 different lineups with those 3 in it already out of the 3 I've made. But the second part of your question, you're scaring me a little bit because you're talking about Cantlay, Homa, and Morikawa. I'm going to have none of any of those 3. Homa and Morikawa, purely for form reasons. I mean, they're both just straight doo-doo right now, or at least Homa is. Morikawa maybe a little bit tighter, but I can't play Max Homa, not at that price. I understand he's a killer. I understand he's a SoCal guy. He's just off. He's broken. I'll put him in the same bucket as Cameron Young right now. I'm sure you could play him in low dollar GPPs, but in a cash lineup or like a small GPP, no way. I just like to say, I'm sitting here staring at the form and the pricing, and if you are a cash player, I don't see a better way to start a cash lineup this week than Scheffler Xander. I mean, is there any way like both of those don't come in the top 12? I don't think there's any possibility. And it's like for a cash lineup or a small GPP, it's exactly what you want as two anchors. So as you can tell, my flag is planted extremely firmly with Xander this week. His US Open history is just amazing, and he's a local guy, and his form is tight, and he's well-rounded, and we don't know exactly what this course is going to give us. I don't really see a scenario in which he comes out of the top 8. So I'm all in.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue. Xander, Rory, and I guess Rahm would be the guys who probably have the best form coming into a U.S. Open without a win in that span. Yes, Scotty Scheffler's got a second and a seventh, but these guys have done it for 5-6 years in a row. I hear you on the top 10. Like, it feels like the safest bet in the world is to bet Scotty Scheffler to finish top 5 and Xander Schauffele to finish top 10. Like, if you just bet those at like plus 125 or whatever they are, you're guaranteed to hit. But Rick, I mean, I wonder from an ownership perspective, to Chris's point, all the metrics point to those guys. Construction feels like it's going to funnel that way. Like, is there real concerns with, from an ownership perspective, in terms of like game theory, that's probably going to be the most common build is like Scheffler and Xander?
Yeah, absolutely. I think those two are going to be pressing each other for highest owned player on the slate between those two, Xander and Scotty Scheffler. So I totally agree with Chris in the sense that if you're playing cash games, if you're playing head-to-head or three ways or double ups or whatever, you should start your lineup Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele. There's no getting around that. Those two guys are going to be the start of a lot of cash game lineups. But if you're talking GPPs, I don't think you can play both. I just think you have to make a stand there and fade one of those guys. And for me, I'd rather fade Xander over Scotty any day of the week. And there's a race car going off in someone's back.
Yeah, that's me. I'm over by the Jersey Turnpike. So,
I get the love for Xander. The thing about Xander that's weird is that he always either starts off his Thursday by starting off like +4 or +5, and then he'll make a bunch of birdies in a row, or he'll start off like -3 or -4 and then make a bunch of bogeys in a row, and then he always ends up like 8th to 12th. And like, I don't know if that's what I want out of my $9,600 golfer. I just don't think he has the. Okay, I'm not going to say he doesn't have the ceiling to win a major. I think he does have the ceiling to win a major. He's good enough to win a major. I just don't think he's going to win this week. It's just a gut feeling, whatever it is. I just think that I'd rather, I agree with the Homa and Morikawa takes. I think even though those guys have played this course more, the injury concerns with Morikawa, withdrawing from the Memorial a couple weeks ago with back spasms. It looks like he's healthy now, but that scares me a little bit. Homa's form has been really bad coming in. I think 9,400 is just way too high of a price to pay for him. Spieth is also an interesting name. We haven't even talked about him. His U.S. Open track record is just incredible. He's really good on USGA courses. He's obviously won the U.S. Open in the past, so I don't mind Spieth. It's just the wrist thing scares me a little bit still. What's he going to do if he gets into the thick rough and has to hit a long iron out of the thick rough? He's going to turn his wrist over and hurt his wrist, and he's going to have to withdraw. I mean, that's a little scary, like, just to think about. So the only one that I'm struggling fading up here is Xander. I really like the arguments that Chris was making about Xander. Like, I even said it at the top of the show. He's the first name I said. The overall strokes gained, like in every category, guy is Xander Schauffele. But in GPPs, I would rather take the lower ownership in Matt Fitzpatrick and Cam Smith down at 9,100 and 9,000. I think for some reason, I just have a feeling about Cam Smith this week. I don't know what it is. $9,000. I think he's coming into form. I think I listened to I can't remember what podcast I listened to earlier, but this course has a lot of uneven lies in the fairway where like the ball is a little above your feet or a little below your feet. So they were comparing it to things like Kapalua,
Augusta,
stuff like that. And Cam Smith is just the nuts at both of those courses. So it's tough to gauge where his game is at because he hasn't been playing on the PGA Tour consistently. Hopefully,
he's hot on live, dude.
I know he's hot on live. Yeah. I think something got into him when he came into the Masters and didn't play well, where he didn't practice that much. He got all that live money and didn't practice that much in the offseason. But I think he's gotten back into form, and I think he's ready to go this week. So I really like Cam Smith and Matt Fitzpatrick at the bottom of the $9,000 range.
Yeah, you mentioned Cam Smith. We don't have a lot of data on him. The Masters doesn't put out their strokes gained data until like a year after it's done, so we really don't know. But at the PGA Championships, which we do have the strokes gained metrics, Cam Smith was pretty damn good, dude. The ball striking was there. He gained ball striking in 3 or 4 rounds. His approach was on fire for all 4 rounds. And, we think about majors in terms of how they set up. The PGA Championship and the US Open have become more similar over the years. And to the point that you're making, if we're talking about nuanced play, funky lies, like having to get up and down for par, putting on ridiculously slanted Augusta style greens, like this place is supposed to be extremely undulated, and it makes a lot of sense. The only thing that gives me some pause with Cam Smith is he doesn't have the best US Open track record. But to the point that we've kind of been trying to circle around is maybe this doesn't play like your prototypical US Open course.
Yeah, you just literally took the words out of my mouth. He doesn't have the greatest track record. Looks like, miscut, 38th, 72nd miscut. So 3 out of the last 5 US Opens he's miscut. But, like you said, I think he's a better player now. I think this is a course that suits him a little bit better. The thing about Cam Smith is his off the tee game is always a little squirrely, and I think he could not be perfect with his driver this week and still hit fairways and be able to get it in the hole. And we know with Cam Smith, he's just a magician around the green. So if he misses the green in this thick rough, he's gonna do his famous little flop shot that goes like 3 yards in front of him, and it's gonna roll right next to the hole. And I think he's gonna be able to do that magic right around the greens that not many other people except maybe like Jordan Spieth and like Phil Mickelson can do right around the green. So I think that's he's going to save a lot of strokes with being able to get it up and down from off the green this week.
So here's the central question before we jump down into the 8Ks, go through there. We have a lot of guys, I'm thinking Mike in particular, that are like, hey, I'm going to have 3, 4, 5 DraftKings lineups this week. I'm going to be doing, small GPPs. I might throw 1 into the Millie Maker. What's the best advice that we can give for lineup construction this week? Is it get funky, grab low ownership here at the top of the board, and ride chalk down low? Like where do you think somebody who's playing 3 to 5 lineups, I'll toss it to you first, Rick, where they should go from a construction standpoint?
I would say do the different thing. Obviously, try not to be too balanced. Try to like I said, maybe take a couple guys from the 10 to 11K range, or maybe, take like 1 guy from the 9K range and then like 3 guys from the 8K range. Something different like that is always nice for GPPs. But one thing that I wanted to ask you guys, when you're making 6 lineups or 5 lineups, like let me just ask Chris, because he's making 6 lineups this week. How many players are you using? Because like I've always heard that if you're making few lineups, like you should make your player pool like tight. Like you should have like 10 to 15 guys for 6 lineups or something like that. And then just like build your core and then just like do a couple like 1v1s and then like, switch just a couple guys here and there. Like, do you go for that route, or do you go for like, oh, I want each lineup to be different just in case?
I'll take that one. So yeah, I typically do between 4 and 7 lineups. And I don't do the big Millie Maker type stuff. I do like the 1,000 to 5,000 person GPPs with variable buy-ins there. But so I would say out of 6 lineups, I'll have two players that I'll like flag plant on, and I'll have them in 4 or 5 of the 6 lineups. And then I'll have like 3 or 4 other players in 3 out of 6.
Yeah.
So that'll be my overweight, I'll be 50% on, 5 or 6, 50% or higher on 5 or 6 guys. and that will be my main player pool, and they'll be from a bunch of different salaries. So that's kind of how I do it. I think I'm on the tighter end. It would drive me crazy to make like 6 completely random lineups with, people all over the place. I can't do it. I flag plan a little harder than most people, I think.
So you're not having 6 lineups with 36 guys is what you're saying.
No,
people do that.
I would think like 15, 16 players tops.
Yeah. So I like that. I like that theory too. I like when you are making few lineups, the less lineups you're making, the tighter your player pool should be. Like you should have like the core, like 3 or 4 guys that you're going to play in most of your lineups. And then the rest, just fill out the rest of your lineups with the plays that you like, or pivot plays or ownership plays and stuff like that. So that's my advice to people that are playing a few lineups. If you're playing 150 lineups, go crazy. You can play like half the field if you want at that point.
For the crowd, though, we'll say that the tighter, the less players you have in your player pool, the more variance you're going to have on a week-to-week basis. Mm-hmm. Variance meaning when you hit, you're going to hit big. When you lose, you're going to lose it all, right? So just putting that out there.
Yep. Yeah, let me tell you about flag planting. The last 2 weeks have been 100% on guys. And I put this in the Discord. I've owned it. At the Memorial, I was 100% on Corey Connors, missed the cut. The next week, I was 100% on Sam Burns, missed the cut. So I've got the second half of that equation covered, which is losing it all. The last 2 weeks, I've gotten murdered on DraftKings. So, but I do think the strategy makes sense. The one thing that I would say that I find myself falling into as a guy who makes anywhere from like, I will do like 20 to 30 lineups, depending on the different things that I play. Where I get stuck is regardless of construction, and I will plant flags up top at guys above $8,000-$9,000, and I end up falling into the same trap because I end up circling on I need a guy at 7,200, I need a guy at 7,500, and I end up being way overweight on a guy in the lower 7Ks that you should be more diversified on. And so I would say, as you're building construction and you start finding these landing spots to fill out your roster, your 5th guy in, your 6th guy in, where it just seems to be the same dollar amount, go in and make some changes at the top to the middle of your tier so that you land on a different guy. You're not always landing in that same bucket.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's better to take stands down below. Like if there's a high ownership guy at like 7,500, or like for example, this week Justin Rose is a high ownership guy. We'll get into that in the 7K range. Maybe take someone at a similar price at a much lower ownership. I think it's better to spread the guy, or better to be different down below than it is up top. I think most of the players out there that are playing DFS every week on a week-to-week basis know where the ownership is up top, and they have these pivots, and they know how to construct lineups up top, but down low is where you win events. So with all that said, Tony, we need to know who your 100% guy is this week.
Oh God, so originally I posted already. It was Justin Rose, but I've since pivoted from that because I'm like, I've gone way too many times. I had a Justin Rose problem for a period of about 8 or 9 years in majors. So I'm reassessing my strategy here on a Tuesday night.
So Tony, it was funny you said that you land at the same place all the time. So I've made 3 lineups and submitted them, but I've been messing around a little bit. I don't know if you guys have noticed, if you've started building lineups yet, there's 21 players, 21 between 7,200 and 7,000. Yep. It is unreal the amount of lineups when I'm down to my last player, it's 7,200, 7,100, or 7,000 every time. That's just where everything's landing. But I guess that's okay, because if that's where it's all going to land, at least there's 21 players to pick from, not 7, right?
Oh, I guess we're all going to win all the money when Mito Pereira wins the U.S. Open this week.
Exactly. Well, I mean, what it means is this is the dead range. This next area.
It's always the dead range.
Yeah, the 8 to 9Ks and the guy in the upper 7s, that's the dead area. And that typically, if you look at guys who end up winning big major GPPs, like this is the selection. This guy makes the difference in the lineup. With all of that being said, my gut check is all of us are going to be like, I'm pretty much fading everybody in this range with the exception of Dustin Johnson. It feels like everybody's playing Dustin Johnson this week. But Chris, I'll toss it to you first. This is a unique range in that we've kind of got some contrasting guys. Terrell Hatton, inarguably one of the hottest guys on tour, playing great golf, contending every single week, it seems like. And then we've got a bunch of guys that are playing well below their baseline. Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, Jason Day, who's kind of retreated back to what he was. Dustin Johnson, who we really don't know. Sung J M, who has missed a ton of cuts in a row. So this 8K is kind of weird. But first, I guess the first question to you is there anybody in here that you're like, I'm sold on this guy in the 8Ks?
Yeah, there's two actually. I love Tyrrell Hatton. He's kind of like, I picture him as like you're playing Super Smash Brothers and you don't know like it's going to be a random course or whatever, but you just pick like that medium guy that's like not slow, not fast, not strong, not weak. You know, it's like, it's kind of like the do it all fighter. It's like, that's Hatton for me. And with this course setup, I really like that here because he's just a grinder. He's really good at everything. He's not great at anything. And he's super hot right now. I mean, there's arguments that he's second or third in form coming into this tournament. So absolutely love Hatton. I'm a little worried he's burnt out, but it seems like the guy just loves to play golf. So I'm gonna let him be there. And then I like Hideki. Good US Open history, seemingly over his injury, really nice short game. So I'm in on Hideki. Not going to touch Finau or Justin Thomas or Shane Lowry with a 10-foot pole. We'll see if one of my lineups like allows me to do DJ maybe. I could get convinced into that, but it's paining me to say I have no interest to play Cameron Young, and I will not bend or break to play Cameron Young because he's my boy. Absolutely love him, but he's completely broken right now. If he wins, he burns me. I'm not playing him. I'm saying it, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, Cam Young is, I think if we'd be having this conversation, let's call it 60 days ago, everybody would be in Cameron Young at $8,000. Like, I know people
$1,200 underpriced.
Yeah. I people bet him earlier in the year at like 50, 60 to 1 saying he is going to win a major this year. And the approach has gone sideways. He's still one of the most elite drivers of the golf ball, but the approach is busted. The putter's been terrible. His around the green has not been good. It just seems like he's in a slump. Rick, what about you in this range? I agree with Chris on Hideki and Hatton. Hideki was initially, when I was making builds, one of my core guys that I had kind of launched into lineups. Feel like this is a great course for him, especially with the comps that have been given out in terms of tournament champions and Augusta. Two places where he's had a lot of success. Who do you like in the 8Ks, and do you think any of these guys are going to garner significant ownership?
All right, boys. Here it is. Here's my next fiery take. So I like Brooks up top. I think he's going to win the tournament. But if Brooks does not win this tournament, I think someone here in this range is going to win their second, not their first, their second major championship. And no, it is not Dustin Johnson. There's way too many Playboy chicks that are going to be out there. He's going to be looking at them at the Playboy Mansion. No, it's not him. He's not going to win. It's not Shane Lowry. He's too fat. It is not. Who else has won major? It's not Jason Day. He sucks. It is my boy at 8,600, Hideki Matsuyama. This course is tailored to Hideki Matsuyama. He is going to win this tournament. I think if it's not Brooks Koepka, it's going to be Hideki. He's going to be the only. I think maybe he might be the only guy I play in the 8K range. I like Tyrrell Hatton. I like the things you said about Tyrrell Hatton. The only thing that scares me about Tyrrell Hatton is that he could get really, really tilted on this course. Hits a bad shot or he hits a good chip and the ball rolls like 20 feet past the hole. And we know how he gets when things don't go his way. He gets really, really mad and then plays bad golf. So that scares me a little bit about Tyrrell Hatton. But Hideki Matsuyama, 4th overall in your model at 8,600. Give me all that Japanese man. He's going to play so well this week. His around the green game is so good. His tee to green game is good. He is over his injury. That is my fiery take that Hideki Matsuyama is going to win this tournament this week.
It's not a massive stretch. Chris mentioned it. His US Open form is fantastic. He's made the cut here, I think 5 or 6 times in a row with a top 10, a bunch of top 20s and top 25s. And it sets up, if Augusta is a comp, if the Tournament of Champions is a comp, like, then give me the guy who's won at both places, Hideki Matsuyama. He's one of those guys when he is playing at his peak, he can he can beat anybody out there. I mean, he's gaining on approach 8 straight events. He's gained off the tee, I think, in 5 of his last 8. His tee to green game in 9 of his last, I think it's 10. He's been gaining strokes. With him, it always comes down to the putter. And if the Memorial is any kind of an indication, he gained almost 2 strokes putting at Memorial. He gained at the Byron Nelson. The last time he lost was at the PGA Championship, still finished inside the top 30, but he lost almost 6 strokes putting there after starting very, very hot the first 2 days at the PGA Championship. It looked like he was going to win that tournament. So I would tell you, I am a firm believer in Hideki here at the AKs. The only other guy that I'm I can't even believe I'm verbalizing this, I'm interested in is Justin Thomas. I know he's broken. But I feel like the baseline of Justin Thomas is so much higher than $8,700. It feels weird for me to see him down in this range.
Tony, a lot of people have been saying that over the last few months about Justin Thomas being underpriced in the $8,000 range. But you know what? I think he's overpriced. He should be $8,000 flat, in my opinion. He sucks right now. He does not know how to hit an iron shot. He does not know how to putt. His only weapon is his driver. He's good off the tee, but after that, he is absolutely broken. He does not know how to play golf. I don't know what happened to him over the last year. I don't know. People say that, you kind of lose your golf game once you get married. He got married last year. Maybe that has something to do. Maybe changing his personal life. I don't know what it is, but he's broken. He doesn't know how to play golf anymore. I don't know what's going on, man.
I mean, here's the only thing. When I look at the numbers according to Fantasy National and I look at ball striking, I look at, hey, off the tee and approach. To your point, going back to basically Phoenix, he's gained 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his last 10 events. He's gained off the tee. And he's gained in 7 of his last 10 approach in over that same time period. So where he's been dying is on the greens, and it doesn't seem to matter what the surface is. Doesn't matter if it's POA, bentgrass, Bermuda. He's been absolutely terrible on the greens. He's also, as of late, struggled chipping around the greens. And if the Memorial is any indication, which to me feels like the bottom of where we've seen Justin Thomas, he still gained on approach, still gained off the tee, but lost 1.2 around the greens and lost 2.4 putting. I hear you. Like I fully subscribe to everything that you're saying, and there's definitely something wrong. I look at that number and it's like him and DJ, those numbers just stare me in the face. They feel like much better players than, $8,700 and $8,300.
I agree.
Save your $400, play DJ.
Yeah, absolutely. Save your $400 and play DJ. I'd much rather go to DJ at $8,300 than just. I agree with what you're saying, but this is one of the rare situations that I am a numbers guy. I believe in the numbers. The numbers are there, but he just does not pass the eye test. Whatever the eye test is at the moment, just doesn't pass it for me, man.
All right, so we'll cross Justin Thomas off the list.
Tough cross.
Off the list. The only other guy that I want to run by both of you, and it's because he ran so pure and so hot. He got his win, and then he's missed 2 cuts in a row since the win. That's Jason Day. We talked about the type of player we think we need an all-around game, a guy who's good off the tee, a guy who's good on approach, a guy who can putt, who's good around the greens. Jason Day, up until the Byron Nelson when he won, was inarguably the best statistical player on tour. I mean, like, he was absolutely lighting it up across the board. He wins at the Byron Nelson, and then he comes back and, misses the cut at the PGA and misses the cut at the Memorial. This is POA. This is not POA, but it's California. He's played well at the Genesis, well at the Farmers. If we can glean anything from what he's done over the last 6 months, improving his game, is a low-owned Jason Day. Can I sell you a low-owned Jason Day?
Go ahead.
No. I'm gonna figure out a way to save 200 more and get to DJ, or I'm just gonna go 200 less and go to Fleetwood. Sorry, I'm out.
I 100% agree with that. Either 200 more to DJ or 200 less to Fleetwood is my play.
That's a good segue into the 7Ks. Fleetwood jumps off the top. I did find it funny. Both he and Nick Taylor in the 7Ks, but I posted this in Discord. Fleetwood's number to win the US Open was like 45-1. And the guy that beat him in the Canadian Open, Nick Taylor, was 250-1 to win the same tournament. And yes, I recognize this isn't a vacuum. It's a different course, all of those things. I just thought it was funny. Both guys were priced within $600 of each other on DraftKings. Both guys played in the playoff, and the odds were 200 points difference between the two of them. But the 7Ks are loaded. These are all guys that, Rick, you and I traditionally love. Chris, there's some names in here that you absolutely love. It feels like there's two buckets where everyone is landing on guys. The first one is the $7,500 bucket. Adam Scott, Ricky Fowler, Patrick Reed, Wyndham Clark, like everybody's got one of those guys. And then the next bucket you mentioned earlier, Chris, is that 72 to 7,000 bucket. And it seems like when people are building lineup constructions, regardless of how they start, 11K guy, 9K guy, two 9K guys, two 9K guys and an 8K guy, they're landing in those ranges over and over again. So what we need to figure out is who are clear plays in the 7Ks and who are clear fades down here. Chris, I'll start with you. Give me two guys you're absolutely fading, not going to touch, and two guys you love this week in the 7Ks.
Okay. My favorite in the upper 7Ks, I like him better than Fleetwood, is Justin Rose. This is a misprice, in my opinion. I think Justin Rose is $500 or $600 underpriced. Form is just absolutely outstanding. And, he's a very well-rounded player. I think his lack of distance off the tee is not going to hurt him here. We haven't really talked about that much, but I think with the fairways being so wide, that means the ball can roll more. And we're in California. It's going to be hard. I think that this is not like a soppy, wet, Northeast course where you need to, Bryson it up in the air and let it travel. I think you can kind of get creative with some tee shots here and use the undulations and the hardness of the course and let it run. So that's a long-winded way of saying I don't mind some old guys this week who can kind of, put it down the fairway a little bit. So Justin Rose, I'm pretty much all in there. But I have a feeling he's going to be like one of the top 5 highest owned players on the slate. Is that right, Rick?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm only going to play Rose then in cash. If I end up doing some 50-50s, or I'll throw him in a GPP lineup where I'm different elsewhere. Right. I mean, you can play chalk. That's okay. If I get freaky somewhere else, I'll use that as my Rose lineup. So love Justin Rose and, love Wyndham Clark. So for the upper 7,500s, those are my two guys. Wyndham Clark is just absolute machine. I feel like he's underpriced as well. He should be priced, 300 to 500 higher. His form speaks for itself. He had a win how many weeks ago? About a month ago, right? So yeah, just absolutely love him. Pristine driver of the golf ball. So those are my two guys. If I am landing in the upper 7,000s, Wyndham, Rose, that's who I'm after. Also don't mind Adam Scott. So I'll pass it to Rick to see who he likes up here too.
All right. I like Tommy Fleetwood right at the top, 7,900. I think, his U.S. Open track record is pretty simple. Like I said, Aaron Hills, similar to that, he finished top 5 there. So I definitely like Tommy Fleetwood at 7,900. I like the call on Wyndham Clark, Chris. I really like Wyndham Clark this week, 7,500. He played really well at Memorial a couple weeks ago and then just kind of fell apart a little bit on Sunday. But he obviously won, a few weeks ago at Wells Fargo, which is also a long, tough track. So I think this is kind of similar to that. So I think Wyndham Clark fits in really well. I think he is underpriced. I do agree with that. But my favorite play in the upper 7K range is going to be a direct pivot off of your boy Justin Rose, and it's going to be at the same price, 7,700. Joaquin Niemann, and you gave me all the reasons why. If this is going to be a course where the ball is going to roll, we like Joaquin Niemann, who hits that low piercing shot off the tee, And he's won in LA. He's won in LA before. He won the Genesis a couple years ago. I think this course is suited well for him. I really like him this week, especially if we're going to get a nice ownership break from Justin Rose. I think he's going to be the perfect GPP play in that range.
I dig that.
Yeah, I like the Niemann call. The other guy that I think I would throw into that mix with all the same narratives, but he is slightly longer off the tee, is Keegan Bradley. Like I at $7,600, like I know Keegan hasn't had the best US Open form, but he's been pretty good this year. He's coming in with 3 made cuts in a row. Last year at the US Open, he had a top 10 finish. And if we're talking about the ability to change elevation in the golf ball, hitting lower shots versus higher one, piercing draws, like that feels like Keegan Bradley to me. Like I think Justin Rose is going to be 15-16% ownership. Joaquin Niemann's probably going to be in that 10 to 12 range. If we can get a few more points on somebody like Keegan Bradley, I think he's also kind of a good pivot in that range. What about the low sevens, Rick? A lot of people seem to be gravitating towards Mito Pereira, those guys down there, Gary Woodland, Denny McCarthy gaining a ton of steam. Like, who do you like in the sub $7,500 range?
I like Denny. I think he's obviously he didn't get the job done at Memorial, but he showed me enough moxie on Sunday at Memorial to tell me that he can win a big tournament. And I think I don't think he's going to win the US Open, but I could easily see Denny McCarthy finishing top 10, maybe even top 5 this week. I like that play, especially it seems like Mito Pereira is getting all that steam. I think he's going to be the highest owned guy in the low sevens. I think good pivot right at the same price range. $100 more. I like Siwoo this week. I think that's a little bit of a misprice. 7,300 for Siwoo seems a little bit low. I think he should be a little bit higher price. So I like Siwoo at 7,300. I like Denny. I like Mito. I don't mind Mito at 7,200. It's just the ownership is starting to scare me a little bit. People are like, yeah, this course is like reminding him of the what was the name of the course that he almost won at PGA last year? I forgot.
You're talking about Siwoo?
No, Mito Pereira, the one that Justin Thomas won.
The PGA Championship, wasn't it?
Yeah. What was the course of that?
Oh my god.
I don't know. Whatever it was tough, long track, similar to that. So people are liking the Mito Pereira call there. So I don't mind it. I just maybe more of a cash play than a GPP play for me. I like Cam Davis, man. 7,200 at the same price. I know
like Cam Davis.
I have a Cam Davis problem. I get it, but his best weapon is his driver. He's great off the tee. He just has this ability to, score. And even if he doesn't, even though if he doesn't like get a top 10 or like a top 15 or top 20 is what you're asking for out of $7,200 golfer, he can still score like a top 10 or a top 20 golfer because he makes so many birdies, a lot of bogeys too. But if he makes the cut and he actually plays 4 rounds, you get a lot of DraftKings points from Cameron Davis at 7,200. So those are my guys. Eric Cole at 7,000. I like that too. He's been playing really good golf. This might be a big boy track for him. I'm not sure, but I can't deny the form. He's been playing really good golf recently. So I'll give him a look too at 7,000.
I got to say this. Did you see the interview with Eric Cole and Amanda Balionis?
I did.
Is it just me, or did like Eric Cole look like a 12-year-old child next to his? I didn't realize Amanda Balionis was like fucking Shaquille O'Neal. Like she looked objectively like a much larger human being than he did. That dude is tiny. Like I didn't realize how little he was.
Yeah, he's like 100 pounds soaking wet.
Dude, I was watching. I was like, are they like set up where she's closer to the camera so she looks much larger? Because she's not a big lady, but he looked like a 12-year-old child next to her.
I want to see him standing next to Brian Harman.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Harman's in this field. I'm not Jesus. That guy's the worst. Don't bring that guy's name up.
Who do you like? Who do you like in the low sevens, Chris?
Yeah, so it's not low sevens, it's mid sevens, but I totally meant to bring this up and I didn't. We didn't discuss the guy who's the best looking in the field and in top form right now is Adam Scott's actually absolutely playing, top tier golf. He's I think 3 top 10s in his last 4 outings, and the other one's a top 30 or top 25 or something like that. He's absolutely red hot on a long course, one of the best long iron players in the world. He has the putter turned around a little bit. I mean, I think at 7,500, I don't know what his ownership's going to be, but like in a cash lineup, this guy's going to make the cut. He's a pro's pro. He's going to be there on the weekend, at least in the top 20, top 30 mix. And at that price, that's really all you need him to do. So love Adam Scott. And then a little in the low 7Ks, I am going to try to land on Mr. Ryan Fox, 3 straight top 30s in majors, which is unreal at that price point. So Ryan Fox, I'm all in on that one. Like Rick said, Eric Cole, the guy's just playing way too good for that price. So definitely going to try to get some Eric Cole. I mean, I think he is a little bit shorter, but like we said, I think you don't have to be a bomber on this course. And because you don't have to be a bomber, I'm going to fade people like Keith Mitchell. I'm going to fade Gary Woodland. And I'm going to go to Denny McCarthy. I think he's kind of been circling for a while now, to break through and really catch fire. So love Denny. I just feel he's a super solid play at that price.
Yeah, I'll bring up a couple guys you didn't talk about narratively that I like in this range as well too. To your point, Chris, I think this 7K range is probably the best that we've seen from an option standpoint. I think all of the guys at 7,500, from Adam Scott to Wyndham Clark, I think the floor and the potential ceiling are very similar. And what I mean by that is I think all 3 guys should easily make the cut. And I think all 3 guys, all 4 or 5 guys also have the potential to contend to be top 5, top 10. So I think all of those guys in terms of upside are interchangeably to me at that price point. And then the other guys that I really, really like that you didn't mention, Chris, you know this because I berated you on the chat string with it when we were texting earlier, but Sepp Straka, 16th, 29th, 7th, won at Honda, likes tough tracks. He's good on Bermuda. This is a Bermuda course in terms of the fairways. So I like Sepp Straka here. He's also longer than average off the tee. And the other piece that I'm hearing is a lot of guys are clubbing down, not hitting driver on par 5s and par 4s. And the dude is, I don't want to say that he's Henrik Stenson-esque, but the dude is magical with a 3-wood in his hand. So I really like Sepp Straka. And then the last 2 guys that I'll throw out, California narrative, both guys, backyard, where they're from, played the course a number of times, very, very familiar. Sahith Theegala at $7,600. If you're talking about a course where you don't have to be the most accurate driver, that is Sahith Theegala. That's his biggest problem, is off the tee. And then Justin Suh, who has been the hottest putter on tour for like the last 6 months outside of Denny McCarthy. Like Justin Suh has been phenomenal. He's a USC guy. He's from Southern California. I believe I read somewhere that it's like his dad or his uncle are a member at this course. So Justin Suh and Sahith Theegala, if you're looking for some low ownership guys and playing the narrative Southern California role, I like both those guys as well too.
Tony, I gotta say, I think the most mispriced person on the whole slate is in the low 7Ks. I'm not gonna say which way, but who between 7,500 and 7,200 is the most mispriced person on this slate?
75 and 72. Well, I would tell you this. No one's playing Alex Noren because he's dog shit. And at $7,400, that's a mistake. But the other guy, let's see, 72.
Right near him. Alex Noren and Taylor Montgomery are both like $800 to $1,000 too high. Yeah, why is Taylor Montgomery still $7,400? The guy is just a complete nothing burger since like 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been pretty bad.
He's gonna be like 1% owned.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys in here that nobody's going to own. Vic Perez, no one's going to own Vic Perez. Actually, another guy like Seamus Powers, who's very, very good. Powers good in California. I think he had a top 12 in the U.S. Open here last year. Powers, another guy who's playing pretty good golf, but no one's going to own him at $7,300.
Yeah. When you're doing the Southern California narrative, I thought you were going to talk about Phil, but thank God you didn't mention Phil. But
no, there's another guy. He could be $1,000 price too much, $1,000 price too low, depending on which way you want to go.
I do like the Justin Suh call, Tony. I totally skipped over him. I think he's a great play at 7,100. I've been playing him a lot in DraftKings the last few weeks, and he's been paying off his number every week. I'm out on Theegala. I don't see it from him yet. I think he's a little too raw still for some reason. I just don't see him getting the job done. I think he's going to miss the cut this week. I think this is too big of a course for him. And I think he, even though he gets squirrely with his driver, I think he gets a little too squirrely with his driver. I think he's one of those guys that could easily miss the fairway here. So I don't like Sahith Theegala, but we do need to have this conversation. We didn't mention their names at all because they're live players, but Bryson, Patrick Reed, Sergio Garcia. What do you think?
I'm all in on Patrick Reed.
I love him this week. Yeah. Patrick
I'm out on Bryson and Sergio. I mean, I think there's value at Sergio because baseline Sergio is an immaculate ball striker, and that hasn't changed. But he hasn't had the best live record here recently, so I'm out on Sergio. I like Bryson as a bet. I don't like him in DraftKings. I think he either wins it or he freaking misses the cut. Like I don't
even like him as a bet anymore. I liked him more when he was 150 to 1, not 60 to 1 or whatever he is this week.
Yeah. He's like anywhere from 50 to 70 depending on the book.
Yeah. I actually like Sergio a little bit this week. He's one of those guys that I don't care how bad his form is. He's still one of the best tee to green players like ever. So his off the tee game, his iron play is always good. It's always been his putter his entire career. And if he can, putt average or whatever, I think I could see him finishing top 20 this week. I don't mind that. 7,000 I think it's a good value for Sergio Garcia.
Yeah.
So before we leave 7,000s, I wanted to make sure we said his name on the show just for when he top fives this week. Russell Henley, Father's Day, dads like to wear Henleys. Russell Henley's in great form. That's my narrative.
Yeah, dude, he's honestly no one ever talks about him. He consistently has boring, like 15%
yeah, I mean,
but he just kind of floats under the radar and cashes top 20s, top 30s, and just kind of does his deal.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see what his top 20 number is. I'm all over it.
Yeah, and then every now and then he has a terrible putting week and he misses the cut badly. So, all right, dropping down into the dumpster. Truth be told, I think this is probably a reason why a lot of people aren't doing 6K guys is because there's 25, 30 guys that are like create a player in a video game names. Like they're not actual real golfers. Like they're guys that qualified through, the US Open qualifying circuit. And so there's like literally 36 guys where it's like, just throw them in the garbage. They're not real golfers. No one's going to play them. But there still are some options here. Obviously, Patrick Rodgers and Kevin Streelman at the top of this are coming in with the best form. But, I mean, I'll be honest with you, that I don't like very much here in the 6Ks. If I had to, I guess if I had to name some names, the names that I would mention, Carson Young, better than Cameron Young right now. So there's one at 6,900. Putnam is still kind of just bouncing around doing his deal. Very similar to the comments we made about Henley. Like Putnam just continues to kind of pop up on leaderboards and play well and, cash checks, top 20 in tournaments. And then, Thomas Pieters, whenever we talk about, long, difficult courses, Thomas Pieters always seems to pop up in the conversation. I will not be playing him, but I've heard his name pop up on a number of different areas. And the last two that I'll throw by you guys before I get your opinions on this, one would be Stu Cink, playing sneakily good on the PGA Tour. He's made like 3 or 4 cuts in a row. He almost won the senior PGA championship. Very long off the tee, even though he's getting older. So Stu Cink's one that I would throw out there as an option if you have to go down to 6,500. And then everybody's going to be playing Samuel Stevens. Like if you got to drop down to below $6,900, everybody and their brother's playing Samuel Stevens. And I get it. The metrics look phenomenal. He's been very good for about 90 days. And he seems to play really, really well. If you look at the courses where he's had his most success, they are typically longer, more difficult tracks. And again, it's not a huge sample size, but just looking at what he's done this year, Sam Stevens seems to set up really, really well. And I think that's why he's garnering so much ownership. But Rick, who do you like down here in the 6Ks?
Yep. I'll give you my plays. I got to actually, I'm going to give you my plays and I got to roll because I'm running a little bit late right now. But I do like Patrick Rodgers at the top. He's a good California guy. So I don't mind him. I like the Sam Stevens call, but dropping down below Sam Stevens, surprisingly, I like two names below him. I like Sam Bennett at 6,500, and I also like Dylan Wu at 6,400. I think Dylan Wu is a little mispriced at 6,400. Why is he the same
Stealing
price?
my
Yeah, why is he the same price as some of these?
Chris's guy, he loves Dylan Wu.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about Dylan Wu, but Sam Bennett, man, he played well at the Masters. He fell apart a little bit on the weekend. He made his professional debut a couple weeks ago. He's been playing. It made 2 cuts in a row on tour, so I don't mind that those plays. And then I think my favorite play in the 6K range, Adrian Meronk, man, 6,700. He's been playing good on tour. He's won on the European tour earlier this year. So I definitely like some Adrian Meronk at 6,700. But like you said, not much else I like down here. Carson Young, he's been playing good, but I think this might be a little bit big of a course for him. Matt Kuchar, if an old guy is going to make the cut in this range, it's probably going to be Matt Kuchar. And, I don't think he's going to make noise, but he could definitely make the cut for you. So I don't mind Matt Kuchar 6,900. But I'll let you guys finish out the show. I got to go. I have somewhere to be at 7 o'clock, so I'll let you guys go. And Chris can tell you why Dylan Wu's going to win this tournament.
Later, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, I think Rick actually said all the people I have written down. So I'm not ending many lineups down here, except for I will get weird and put a couple 10K guys in the same lineup. So I think I need 2 people from the 6,000. So the only people I'm playing down here are Patrick Rodgers, Carson Young, Sam Bennett, and Dylan Wu. That's it, and that's all.
Can I interest you in a former major winner who has made the cut in 3 of his last 4 U.S. Opens with 2 top 15-ish finishes and a top 25?
Let's hear it.
It's Francisco Molinari. He's been terrible.
I'm out on that, dog.
He's been terrible, but it was funny because when I was going through and looking at this, and obviously I'm putting together a rank up based off of stats and form and tournament history, like he was 15th in the model in tournament history, like, which blew me away. And he lives in LA. Like since winning the British Open, which seems like it was a lifetime ago, like he's moved his family out to Southern California and he's been here since before the pandemic. I don't know if he's a member at this course. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, I said he's probably played here 20 times then.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, I get it. He's, 2 missed cuts. I think he finished 63rd in the other appearance that we've seen here in the last couple of months. So it's not great, but to your point, like you kind of got to plug your nose and grab some guys. I think if it was me, like Rodgers, my 2 favorite would be Rodgers and Putnam, and then Sam Stevens would be a close third. But I mean, if you're looking at ownership numbers, like everybody else is kind of like anywhere between 2 and 5%, and then Sam Stevens is like 12 to 15%. Like everybody's all over Samuel Stevens this week.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Stevens is obviously the best play because he's just mispriced by $500 at least.
Yep.
But I'm not playing a 6,600 guy at 12, 15% ownership. I just can't do it. So I'm probably out on that one, unfortunately. But Dylan Wu, man, I don't get, like, I think he did something to DraftKings where they just like hate him because the guy is never on a top of the leaderboard, but he just consistently gets top 30s, top 35s. And when you're spending this much money, even if he makes the cut and gets 42nd, you made money. Like you profited on that play. So, I don't think the long course is going to necessarily help him out, but his pedigree and just his form is way better than this price point. So I'm going to have a hard time not being at least 50% on Dylan Wu this week. So
well, I mean,
sorry.
He had a top 25 finish at the RBC Canadian last week. He's gained on approach in like his last, 15 straight tournaments. So, the ball striking is good. To your point, he's not the longest guy off the tee, but still at the RBC Canadian, where a lot of guys were clubbing down, if we expect them to do that here at LACC, like he gained 4 strokes versus the field. So he's highly accurate off the tee as well, too. You just got to hope he doesn't lose, 3 to 4 strokes putting or, chip his way out of the tournament like we've seen him do, because to your point, he is pretty good. He racks up a lot of top 25s, a lot of top 30s, And if you're playing a golfer who's priced at below $6,500, it's like, dude, make the cut, play the weekend. That's all you need to do for me. That's it.
You're already way ahead. Yeah. I think if you can somehow construct a lineup where you're just like, oh man, I absolutely love 5 out of these 6 pieces. I just need someone in the dumpster, 6,600 or below. I would go straight to Dylan Wu because I think he's that safety net. Like he doesn't have the upside that like a Kitayama might have at 6,800. Kitayama in a GPP is probably a better play than Dylan Wu because Kitayama could bink a top 5 here, right? But Dylan Wu is never going to do that. So it kind of depends on what kind of contest you're playing. But yeah, if you love every aspect of it, I'd rather throw Wu in there and play it safe than Kitayama, who could just totally eject on Thursday and finish 112th.
Yeah. So. I mean, to your point, like Kitayama won a big event at API earlier this year. He's massive off the tee. And he's a guy who's got a high upside, but that floor, to your point, could be top 10. It could be DFL, like absolutely eject from the tournament.
Does he even have a middle ground? I'm looking at his finishes, kind of. He displays a middle ground every now and then, but his middle ground is way less likely than his miscut or top 10 rate.
Yeah, let's see. Kitayama. Let's take a look at old Curtis Kitayama here. Let's see. So Kurt Kitayama, yeah, I mean, he missed a cut at the Memorial. He was really popular there. I think a lot of people liked him. Burned obviously a bunch of folks, but he had the top 5 finish at the PGA Championship. He gained almost 9 strokes on approach that week. Lost off the tee, which seems to be his Achilles heel is that he's not great off the tee. But to the point that we've kind of mentioned here, like if you can get away with being a little bit squirrely off the tee, I guess I could see it. You just got to hope you get that peak approach play from him where, regardless of whether he's coming out of the rough or on the fairways, like he's just peppering greens because he does get hot with the putter. When he won at the Arnold Palmer, he gained almost 6 strokes putting. The PGA Championship, he gained almost 5 strokes putting on the greens. So he's one of those, he just runs really hot and cold, and you just got to hope you catch him on a week when he's running hot.
Yeah, man, agree. I'm going to play him in at least one lineup just in case.
Yeah, no, I like Kitayama a lot this week. I didn't mention him, but I think, right there with a couple of guys that are in that same price range. Rick mentioned Meronk, kind of a bomber. Another bomber way down the board is Wilco. I think you pronounce his last name Niebener. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but the dude he's a Polish guy. He absolutely like 400-yard drives. Like he is an absolute bomber of the ball. So him and Meronk are both guys that are of a similar like skill set. So if you're playing like the bomber narrative, you can go like Wilco and Meronk, and you'll have 2 guys that average 350 yards off the tee.
There you go. Then you can play both Scotty and Rahm. Let's go.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, Chris. Thanks for jumping on, man. It's good to have you on. We got to do this more often. It's nice to have someone else to bitch at other than Rick on the show.
No problem. We're going to go over one and done, or are we going to do save it for next week?
I think we will. So, and the main reason why is you are absolutely dominating one and done this year. It's not even, well, I guess it is kind of close, but you've been on a heater, dude. Like the Nickel City Mafia one and done. You have been in the lead now for I don't know, like 3 months, and I don't see any signs of relinquishing that. But why don't you go ahead and tell us who your pick is for one and done this week?
Yeah, I've kind of had this one circled for a while. Once I used I used the 2 live guys, Brooks and Cam Smith, earlier at the first 2 majors. That was kind of my strategy. And I don't know why, but like 2 months ago, I said I'm using Rahm here. California course. I was going to hope he was in form, which he is. So I'm going top heavy this week. Kind of going different than my live strategy I was using. It was either between Rahm or DJ for me, but since I am front running, I just wanted to pick the better player. So it's Rahm for me this week. But I hope I don't regret DJ.
Yeah, I mean, so very similar to you. I love the Rahm call first. If I still had him, I was absolutely playing him. This is perfect for him. But I would say this: initially I had been saving Max Homa for this tournament like all year. I was like, this is where I'm going to play Homa, and then to the point we've been kind of belaboring, he kind of went to dog shit. Like it's been bad. So I was like, okay. So I'm like, all right, DJ. DJ is the guy I'm going to play. I'm going to play DJ. And then I started doing my research, going through all my stuff, and I'm like, God, Xander like looks really, really good. Like, and so I think I'm going to pivot. I'm going to play Xander this week in our one and done. The main reason why is because Rick's got Brooks, so I don't want to go there. And if I want to make up any ground, I got get a little bit different. So I think this week, all of us that are in that have different picks this week. Rick is going with Brooks, as I mentioned, and then Jake's going with JT, the broken JT. He thinks JT is on the rebound. So I guess we'll find out. We're all different this week, so it's going to be very interesting. There's going to be a lot of movement.
Yeah, man, 4 different picks at the top 4. So, yep, we'll have a different leaderboard next week. But I like everyone's pick except Jake's. But yeah, Xander, Rom, and Brooks are both right up there in the top 5 with odds to win the tournament. So
yeah,
let's get it.
I feel like I'm guaranteeing myself a top 10 with Xander. I don't know if I can win the tournament, but I feel like I'm guaranteeing myself a top 10.
Yeah, man. I'm not gonna lie. I've been lucky. I think I've hit 3 winners, which is unlikely in the one like. So yeah, I hit what, Homa, Scotty, and Brooks. So I played Homa early and got lucky because he's unusable now.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. The strategy has definitely backfired on me. So it's like having a bottle of milk in the fridge. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get some. I'm gonna go get some Oreos here pretty soon, and then by the time I buy them, the fucking milk is expired. That's how I feel right now with Max Homa. So, anyways, that's gonna do it for us. Chris, thanks again for jumping on, man. Any idea when we're gonna get you and Rick doing fantasy football content again?
So yeah, I have a show I'm working on now with Mike. It should come out in the next week or two where we're going to talk about all the different styles and types of fantasy football leagues, different than just your regular league that you kind of sign up to play in August. We're going to talk about dynasty fantasy football, best ball drafts, keeper leagues, all that kind of stuff. So working on that with Mike right now. Should have it out in a few weeks. And then, we always do like an off season state of affairs football. So we'd like to get you in on that too, Tony, so we can talk about, training camps are kind of starting up right now. See who we like in terms of teams this year, do some over-unders, that kind of thing. So yeah, football season's always right around the corner. I feel like the day after the Super Bowl, football is right around the corner. So we love football on this channel and I'm ready to get it going, man. Let's go. I'm actually in a fantasy football draft right now and they're barking at me. It's like one of those drafts where you have like hours to pick, but they're barking at me that it's my turn. So perfect time
to pick. I'm in the ones that it's like you get 60 seconds and then it's like people are after like 15 seconds, people are MFing you on the chat.
Yeah, so this is it's a dynasty draft where we're drafting rookies right now. It's like our NFL draft essentially, but it's really fun because it's like, the draft is only 4 rounds long, but people work, people have families, yada, yada, yada. So everyone has a 4-hour clock and it stops at night. So it's like you can trade picks, you can trade up, you can trade back, you can trade next year's picks and stuff like that. So it like, I'll talk about it on the Dynasty Fantasy Football show, but it's like kind of makes you feel like a real life GM. Do I need to go get my quarterback? You know what I mean? Like if you had Brady as your QB, like, oh, do I trade up and go get Bryce Young or something like that? It's kind of fun. So I'll explain all that on the show with Mike in a couple weeks.
Very nice. That's cool. We look forward to seeing that show with you, and we'll have to get you back on here with me and Rick again, maybe for the British Open coming up here in about a month's time. So
let's do it, man.
That'll be the final major of the year. But Chris, thanks for being on late with us, dude. Good luck this week. Good luck with your bets. Rick and I will post our bets to the Discord. If you're not signed up for the Discord, I mentioned it each and every week. Just go down in the comments here, click the link, and join the Discord. It's absolutely free, and it continues the conversation all week. It's the best way to just stay engaged on what's happening. We post, kind of live betting odds, We'll post metrics on there for like strokes gained if you're playing Showdown or looking to add somebody live. But it's a fun conversation. It's like being on a big text string with like 75 people. So anyways, I highly recommend it. Chris, thanks again, man. Good luck this week. And I hope everybody hits a winner at the US Open. Remember to subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel, and all of this great content will get dumped right in. And we will see you guys back again next week.